From the HBA podcast studio in New York City, welcome to the Medium Rules. I'm Alan Baldachin. I'm joined today in the HBA podcast studio by two gentlemen who are about as informed as anyone out there with respect to the current state of the art in the field of securing digital assets, i.e. cryptocurrency. Dimitrios Skalkotos is the global head of Ledger's Ledger Vault business, which is Ledger's institutional grade cryptocurrency security product offering. Zach Hamilton is the founder and CEO of Airfoil Capital, a cryptocurrency investment consulting firm, which works with both high net worth individual investors as well as institutional investors to store their digital assets safely, help them evaluate risk factors, and enable them to make the most informed digital asset investment decisions. Dimo and Zach, thanks so much for coming on the Medium Rules, and very much looking forward to what I think will be a fascinating and very informative conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Zach, you're on the phone.
Yeah. Thanks, Alan. I really appreciate it. It's always nice to talk to you guys and move forward here.
Good, great. Thanks for joining in by phone. It's our first time doing a phoner. So we've got Dimo in person and Zach calling in from Florida. So let's kick it off. And Zach, let me ask you to really take a 40,000 foot view. And let's assume, listeners, viewers, sort of have a basic understanding of cryptocurrency and the blockchain, but may not understand or fully appreciate what we're talking about when we're talking about security issues related to crypto. So I guess my first question or my first request of you would be maybe just to explain what exactly we're securing. Why is security important? Are we securing the digital assets themselves? Are we securing access? Why don't you sort of just explain the basics here?
For sure. So, it is a complicated subject, and there's all sorts of different phrases, different words, and really different ways that we could describe what we do in terms of security. But the real, getting down to it is, since your cryptocurrency keys don't operate like a key to, say, a car, we have to wrap a bunch of different technology around them in order for you to use your cryptocurrency. So the value doesn't live in your vaults or in your ledger and whatever you're using to store things. Your value lives on the blockchain. You just have the access keys to it. So with this access key, it's not like the keys to a car. So say I want to give you the keys to my car, you're in town, I throw them to you. You can't go sell the car. You can drive it around, you can maybe take it to the mechanic, you can do some stuff with it, but you're going to have a really tough time, selling that car or doing something more than just drive it around. However, with cryptocurrency, if I give you my keys, you now own that cryptocurrency. You have unlimited rights to it. And that's really just the basis of all of this, is that control equals ownership here. And since we're not using third parties, usually to control our crypto, we need to do all of those systems over again that, say, a bank has built over the past 200 to 300 years.
So Dimo, when we're talking about keys, what are we talking about? We're talking about a cryptographic series of numbers and letters, correct? 24 numbers and letters. So describe for us how I access my crypto, how I buy crypto, how I sell crypto. Maybe just I did say that we're going to assume people have some general knowledge, but what is a key?
What is a key? It's just a mathematical equation that is given to you when you're purchasing a digital asset, and you're storing those keys either if you're purchasing via fiat on an exchange, if you're buying Bitcoin or Ether, or you're converting that Bitcoin and Ether and doing a digital asset to digital asset transaction. So for Ledger, our job is to make sure that we secure those particular keys that are critical to you, both from the retail perspective, the institutional perspective, and our other division, our Internet of Things division. So that's really our main issue that we're trying to solve, is really securing those endpoints and redefining kind of the crypto security landscape.
So it's a unique key, correct?
Yeah.
It's a unique key. And is that unique key per Bitcoin, or do I have a key for all my digital assets? Do I have a unique key for Bitcoin, another unique key for Ethereum, let's say, another unique key for Zcash. I mean, how does that work?
I think the digital assets, and Zach's probably better to answer this because he's uniquely buying all these things.
Right.
I'm just storing them and keeping them safe.
You're the tech guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
Sure.
I can jump in here.
Jump in.
The keys are different for each asset. Though most modern wallets are using what's called hierarchically deterministic wallets, where your wallet itself, say your Ledger Nano, your Trezor, whatever you're using, will generate one master seed, and from that master seed, they will derive a list of separate private keys and public keys for each of, say, your different assets. So you can't work backwards. So I can take a master seed and I can make a private key for Bitcoin, and then that private key can create a public key. But I can't ever find my master seed from my Bitcoin private key. So it only goes down the stack.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can have a different private key for each asset, or you can have the one that generates multiple
signatures.
And that master seed is unique, and that master seed is what, a mathematical formula that only you. How does that work, Zach?
So the master seed, there's a bunch of different types of master seed programs that you can do out there. The most common is BIP32/BIP44, and that uses a 24-word phrase. And those 24 words are drawn from a library of, I believe, 2,048 unique words. So all of those words really only have 4 characters at the beginning that are unique, and the collisions, meaning the likelihood that someone's going to have the same uniquely generated passphrase as you, is 24 to the 248 power. So it's quite a large number.
Okay.
People are evolving this all the time, but it's kind of this weird large number theory stuff that's super interesting. The words just make it easy for us humans to read.
Right. Helpfully. So when we're talking about digital assets, what we're saying here is that it's not like you can stick them under your mattress. It's not like you can take them to a bank and secure them or stick them in a vault. You basically you own basically a value that lives on a blockchain. You have access to that value based on a cryptographic series of words. That is your master seed. And you need a way to make sure that no one else can, that in an unauthorized way, can access your digital assets by somehow either determining or stealing or hacking your keys. So Dima, what is so Ledger is maybe best known, although you guys are certainly making a mark with the Ledger Vault, but you're perhaps best known for the Ledger Nano wallet, which is a portable single point of failure wallet, which is in effect for you principally directed for your retail crypto investor, be fair to say. But can you maybe walk us through sort of the continuum as Ledger sees it of sort of the various levels of kind of crypto investor that might need security? And let's start to unpack the way we think about security based on who we're talking about and what kind of protection they're looking for.
Yeah, so you're right. So Ledger got their start on the retail side with the Nano product, the Nano S. We have a Ledger Blue product, which is a bigger touchscreen, and we just announced this week at CES the Nano X.
Nano S,
X.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Nano X product, which is a Bluetooth-enabled Nano with a larger screen on it that will allow you to manage your assets from our mobile Ledger Live mobile app. So that's where the business has gotten started. It is a cold storage solution to managing your keys. You can put it in a vault. You can take the keys with you. You can take the Nano with you and protect them. We obviously would prefer that you obviously secure them because there are single points of failure with any retail device. So you want to make sure you're protecting your keys and protecting the assets that you're participating in. We're trying to leverage that success and brand and recognition and the security expertise that we've provided the retail segment, and carry that over onto the enterprise segment with the same type of technology, secure elements, hardware security modules, and our security operating system called Bolos, which really makes up the Ledger Vault offering. The secure element and the operating system Bolos makes up the Nano operating system and securing the retail keys for the retail segment. So from the retail perspective, it's individuals, it's asset managers, it's hedge funds, it's family offices. It's for you're seeing it pervasively used throughout the digital asset ecosystem and industry, and we're trying to provide an institutional grade security element that provides better governance rules and eliminates a single point of failure and allows you to secure the endpoints, which is very key, because normally the things where things transact and where things can go wrong is when you're interacting and wanting to do some types of activity. That's where the majority of the security needs to be maintained, and that's where we're spending a lot of our time in securing those endpoints.
Meaning, when you say securing those
buying
endpoints,
and selling. When you're trying to move things from one wallet to the next, and making sure you're doing that transaction securely, and we know that it's you wanting to transact, and you have approval to transact. And making sure that it validates and certifies that it's you.
So the Nano, when we say single point of failure, what we mean by that is if you lose your Nano, you forget it at Starbucks, your backpack gets stolen.
You're fine in that regard. Okay. So if you lose your Nano, you have your 24-word recovery phrase, as that talked about earlier. You can buy a brand new Nano off of the ledger.com site. Get your Nano, do your 24-word recovery phrases, and your assets are there if no one has taken your private keys, if they didn't know your passcode for your Nano. So even if your Nano gets lost, you can still recover your assets based upon your 24-word recovery phrase that you have.
So the single point of failure that we're talking about is if somebody gets your 24-word phrase, your
or somebody gets your key, your code for your keys. Yes, right. Yes, okay. Exactly.
Okay. Zach, from your perspective at Airfoil, you are dealing with high net worth individuals and institutional digital asset funds. What are the primary kind of modes of securing those assets? Putting aside for a moment Ledger's product specifically, when you're when you're past the retail guy. And you're up into the millions of dollars, the 7-8 figures. What are the priorities there? What is sort of the current state of the art as to how people think about securing those assets?
Yeah, it's changing all the time. Obviously, all of this is. We really focus on backups. We focus on access. Really trying to pinpoint within a given organization where the trust is. Is the trust the general partner? Is the trust a managing partner? Who is that person within the organization that does have unlimited control of those assets? And then backups. Usually with your personal holdings, you would only have a single backup of your keys. You would probably keep all 24 words in the same place, in the same vault. I wouldn't suggest anyone do this because, back 5 years ago, you would think that $2,000 of Bitcoin isn't worth a lot. Now it is. So, we want to plan for the future and plan for 5 to 10 years from now, as we move forward with those backups and recovery systems. So usually we'll do 3 separate physical locations. We'll do a 2 of 3 scheme, meaning that we need 2 of the 3 backups in order to recover the device. This is a little cool, too, because it means that the single backup, one of those 3, stored in a vault by itself, is worth nothing to a thief. It's only worth something when you bring it in with another one of the backups, which can be any of the other 2. So you can keep one in a safe deposit box in New York. You can keep one in a safe deposit box in Switzerland. You can keep one in your back pocket. It doesn't really matter. It's only that they have value when they're 2 of them together. This really prevents, kind of natural disaster attacks, terrorist attacks, those kind of edge cases where your individual person wouldn't be as worried. But from an institutional perspective, it's worth the extra couple $100 a year to maintain that type of recovery plan.
So
and that's really just from a recovery standpoint.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so that's actually a good, kind of a good pointer in the sense that what sort of, without getting too situation room here, what is sort of the threat matrix here? What are the vulnerabilities? Hack, black hat. Zach, why don't you take a crack at that, and then maybe let's talk about that.
Yeah, so in the crypto or security world, it's called an attack surface. What does your threat model look like? And your threat model is based on what your attack surface is. It means where someone could potentially attack your holdings. So if you have an attack surface of a single vault that has 100% of the keys in it, you have a very pinpointed place where everything is. So you can protect that pretty easily by making that vault stronger, right? And it's very important here to remember that security is a continuum. It is not, something is not secure, something is not secure. It's always somewhere in between. So, we want to balance security with usability, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, but we want to balance the ease of use in terms of getting your crypto recovered if it were to be lost, if the front-facing device like a Nano were to be lost or stolen, so we could sweep it out into a new wallet quickly. So really the most pressing thing right now and where we have to do the most work with clients is in the training of the client themselves. It's not in vaults. It's not in, number of backups. Those problems have pretty much been solved. It's just implementing them. The hardest part is, keeping people's computers clean of viruses, keeping their behavior correct. Just a recent example was I was at a trade show, and this is hilarious, but it's actually a cryptocurrency custodian service based in the U.S. that was giving external battery packs away at a conference, and they've got their logo right on them. And they hand me one, and I just look at it and say, "You want me to plug this into my phone?" And I know this is an attack vector. This could have some malicious code into it that we are all unwittingly plugging into our phones. Those kind of things where you don't want anyone to plug anything into your computer, you don't want to connect to unsecured Wi-Fi, you really want to use a VPN full time. These little security moves, once you add them up together, can really, really dramatically reduce the attack surface that a fund or individual would have. Remember, everyone's out in the open. If you own crypto as part of a fund, it's probably being targeted currently. You're probably being hit with phishing emails almost constantly. And since you're a high-value target, those phishing emails are going to be really good. They're going to have your business partner's photos in them. They're going to look like your business partner's emails. But if it, say, fails a verification check on Proton Mail, you should sniff around a little bit. So yeah, it's the user behavior that's the hardest part here.
Zach brings up all the right points and things of it's a continuum. And to our point, we have a security team at Ledger in Paris. We call it the dungeon. And there's a group of 10 individuals, and they're a red-blue team, right? Similar to what you find in other security companies, where they're doing everything that they can to protect our environment, and they're also doing everything that they can to hack our environment to make sure that we're completely and best as we can taking the security measures to the highest level possible. And if we find obviously some issues with ourselves as well as with other things that we are testing in the industry and marketplace, because we are a responsible citizen and we want to make sure this asset class and this new industry takes off and is very successful. So we are evaluating and testing a lot of the tools that are currently in the marketplace today and providing feedback to those specific companies that we're working with or that may be in a peer analysis with us. So it's key. It's key for us. So we've got a lot of sophisticated equipment, some of the best security experts that are around the globe, working at Ledger to further protect our environment as well as figure out ways of how do we get into our environment, and if they do find a way, then we can kind of patch those things up and remedy those things. So, and Zach was also talking about how we're morphing to an institutional offering now and putting more governance principles where you're eliminating that single point of failure. So for the Ledger Vault, we have 4 layers of governance, right? So you have the three principal owners that create a third of the master seeds individually, independently. They go in a room. There's no cameras, there's no TVs, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no anything, and they create a third of their master seed, and they recreate their 24-word recovery phrase. And the other two principals independently do the same thing, and then our software converts that into the one master private seed. And then three additional individuals come in and create that encrypted, what we call wrapping key custodian. It's really that encrypted instance on the vault for that particular hedge fund or company that is wanting to protect their private keys. And then you have two additional layers of governance, which are the administrators and the operators. And the administrators are the ones setting up the wallet structure for that particular company and setting up the governance principles for each wallet to where we provide you a fairly flexible security continuum without jeopardizing security. So if you want to design a wallet that is extremely cold, you can do so with our technology of having 10 of 10 M of N approvers. You can put a time limiter or a rate limiter in there, or you could have something that's very warm or hot with 2 or 3 approvers and a whitelisted account to where it transacts very regularly. So we're solving this issue with technology because the majority of the institutional applications that are out there that have announced in the marketplace today are primarily cold storage solutions. We're providing a solution that provides you the capability to design the level of risk tolerance that you want to take per wallet that you have. You want something very cold, you have it. You want something very warm and hot, you have it with the vault.
People may not immediately understand when you say cold and hot. What do you mean?
So the definitions today, as people are learning, cold means something that is completely 100% offline, that is not connected to the internet, right?
Any network.
Hot meaning that it is connected in some
and
shape
why
or
would you
form.
want a warm or hot solution as an institutional investor? Is that for ease of transacting?
Yeah, so we're providing instant access to your funds.
Correct.
You don't have to wait 24 to 48 hours unless you design something to where that is your risk profile and that's how you want to design it. So we're providing the flexibility to the firms to design each individual wallet to their risk tolerance. Some they may want to have as extremely cold and takes a long time to get the funds out into another wallet per se. Others, they're actively trading, so they don't want to wait 24 to 48 hours. They want something that is fairly instantaneous.
How did you guys come up with your security protocol? What's the sort of the root of that? Is that something that does that relate back to a non-digital asset security protocol? Is there a legacy or a history or a paper trail or a breadcrumb trail there? Or was it sort of designed kind of ab initio for digital assets?
It all came from the evolution of what did we need to do to support the nano business in essence.
Okay.
And also, if you look at the management team and the core operational structure of Ledger, we have folks, coming from the hardware security module space. We have folks coming from the chip secure element space within the France community, which they really invented that secure element and security software that is embedded in the secure element that's in your, credit cards today, that's in your passports today. Those are the legacy of where Ledger initiates from. Okay. And that's a perfect technology in helping us manage this new asset class and these digital assets.
Okay.
And the keys for the digital assets.
Okay. So that's interesting. So there is a non-crypto legacy here. We're not starting from scratch.
No, the technology is existence today. It's a fairly sophisticated and mature technology in the banking industry today,
exactly.
And the credit card industry today, and within your passports.
Yeah,
it has a lot of additional use cases.
In terms of Ledger, where you guys are positioned in the marketplace is your pure play technology. Meaning what? Meaning you do not make any decisions with respect to investing, obviously, you make no decisions with respect to. Tell me about how you differentiate.
So Ledger is an infrastructure security platform that we're providing to companies, to hedge funds, crypto assets, asset managers, banks, trust companies to control and manage 100% of their private keys. We are not a custodian. We have a joint venture with Nomura, who is using our technology to provide a full service insured custody platform into the marketplace later in 2019, and also Global Advisors is a partner in that joint venture. But Ledger in and of itself, the vault is 100% technology infrastructure where we're providing that technology to companies to manage 100% of their digital assets. They control 100% of their keys. They can control 100% of the governance principles and the risk tolerance they want in setting up their wallets. And we are not involved in any of the approval process at all.
Okay. Zach, you surveyed all the various institutional grade security offerings out there and ultimately landed on Ledger. But maybe take me through the reasons for that and how you as a client differentiate between the various institutional level security offerings out there. What are you looking for and how do you evaluate these? Because you're pretty much seeing all of them.
Yeah, there's, really, I hate to say it, but I think there might only be one. The other offerings that are out there are custodial. So they're, to me, automatically wiped out, kind of out of this game. For a company like ours, a company that's implementing technology for funds, those funds need to be in control of their crypto. Also, from like a personal perspective and a future of the cryptocurrency industry perspective, I don't think we just want to start. We don't want to create banks, but again, we want to have our assets in our control. Those assets are backed by mathematics and physics and not trust in humans. So, what I like about the Ledger Vault and, full disclosure, I'm a user of both the Nano S's and the Ledger Vault product, is that we are in control. And if, say, for some reason Ledger does something we don't like, we can sweep our wallets ourselves. We just need to recover them into a completely open source wallet. So that protects us from the future, and you don't have any situations like what you would have with a bank where if you want to liquidate all of your accounts, you have to ask permission. I'm very big not into asking for permission to access our own funds. So I think that's a very, very big deal. Of course, there's always going to be an offering that is custodial. For some clients, that might be the best way to go. It might be the best way to hit the highest notch on that security continuum for their specific need. But for me and most of my clients, we deal with just such a wide array of assets that for them to turn over control to a third-party company is usually very expensive, and very risky. I mean, the largest heists in human history have happened in this industry, and they happened recently. Billions and billions and billions of dollars have been stolen from centralized cryptocurrency storage solutions, while so far no one has broken anything to do with BIP 32 or 44, or really broken the core of what makes all this work.
So when you say ask permission for your funds vis-a-vis a custodian, can you sort of just unpack that somewhat? What is a custodian doing that is different from Ledger Vault?
The custodian is just holding the crypto in their own recovery system. This could be something that they've designed themselves. It could be something that they're buying off the shelf. A custodian could use the Ledger system, the Ledger Vault system, if they chose to. But that custodian is in control of those keys. I forget what the exact phrase is, but the keys are the crypto. So if you don't have them, you don't own it. And we're just wrapping a legal structure around it to allow people to access their crypto easily. So when I would say go to a custodian, I would have to request access. Like you said, 24 to 48 hours is the normal turnaround time, where they say that they pull those tokens from cold storage and then put them out to the address that you're wanting to. However, you don't know that. You don't know what they're doing behind the scenes because you don't own those keys. So it's just really a different method of doing all of this. Just like asking every time you go to the bank to withdraw money, that's a request. That is not a demand. You don't have the power to make that demand. You can only pray or beg for the bank to give you your money back, if they have it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a good way to think about it, and you guys can tell me if this is too simplistic or not applicable, but is parking your car in a parking lot or parking it in your driveway or your own garage. In the one hand, you're handing it off. They're dealing with it. They're securing it. You need to ask for your keys. On the other hand, you can have your car anytime you want. It's there. It's up to you to secure it.
Think of it more like you're dropping your car off at a parking lot and you are signing the title and putting a blank name on it. You're paying all the taxes for the DMV, and whoever shows up and signs their name now owns your car. So it's more like that than it would be just parking it. Because remember that access here is ownership.
Ownership.
Is ownership.
That's fair.
Yep.
Okay.
So again, we're providing the technology for everybody. Look, this asset class in this industry is in its infancy. We're in the early innings of from a primarily retail oriented business now to moving to more institutional and mainstream. And Ledger is striving to provide technology that provides a level of comfort around the security of your keys and your assets. Think of the Ledger Vault as part of the digital plumbing. I want this to be used in banks and trust companies so they can then offer a custodial service or a trust service to the marketplace if that's where the industry will move, and that's what's going to be required of the industry to do so. But I'm also providing Zach and other firms like him to manage 100% of their own digital assets, self-custody, and let them be in 100% control of accessing and moving their funds around to where they see fit.
Yeah. Have you guys had, to your knowledge, any black hat episodes, any attempted hacks? What is and I know you haven't been there that long, Demo, at Ledger, but what's the history there?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I don't know. To be frank, I'm not aware of any. But again, like I said, my tenure so far is relatively new, and I don't know the complete aspect of the retail side or on the institutional side. We're just getting started, so I'm not aware.
Yeah. Okay. Zach,
there's been there's been a couple of vulnerabilities that have been detected, but usually they're fairly theoretical, or there would be no way for say Ledger to know if it was actually executed upon. Just a really good example that I like to use about how advanced this is, or like the types of vulnerabilities that the security researchers at Ledger and really security researchers all over the world are working on. So, for example, on the Ledger Nano, you have to enter a passphrase or a PIN code on the front screen. It's an 8-digit code, and if you enter it wrong 3 times, the device gets wiped. So when you used to plug in a Ledger, I think one of their first iterations of the software or of the firmware, you would start with 0. So the screen would light up, and the number flashing would always start, I think it would start with 0. And then you would click up 0 through 9 and select which one. So theoretically, if you knew how that worked and you were listening to someone putting in their passphrase, you could make a really good guess about what it is by just counting the number of clicks. So what Ledger did was they randomized the letters on the starting point. So now when I click, if my passphrase is 1, 2, 3, I put in 1, it starts at a different number. I put in 2, it starts at a different number, etc. So that's the type of vulnerabilities that are discovered and then usually patched fairly quickly. But in terms of getting through to the secure element and being able to extract the seed from a locked device, even within physical possession, it's not happened yet. It's come close, especially with some security researchers releasing this website called wallet.fail. They found a lot of vulnerabilities, but none of them, no matter how much time and money they spent to work on these devices, would have revealed the seed. So I think it's very important to remember that, one, not only is Ledger working on it, but there's a whole lot of other security researchers out there too that just want to protect their own crypto, or people like me who just want to protect it for other people and build a business around it.
Mm-hmm. talking about Zach, coming back to something you alluded to earlier, just the trust versus zero trust. And I know it's something that you're very interested in, which is trying to move sort of the dream of the zero trust security kind of level or achieving zero trust. What do you see as sort of the steps from here to there, and why is that so important to you? Maybe just address that if you can, because I think that's a really interesting sort of place to go.
The achieving zero trust, I think, is a pipe dream, but it's something to work towards. It's like the speed of light, right? Like, you're never going to attain the speed of light, but you can get really close, or close to it. We're always going to be searching for something to attain that speed. I think it's important because we've just been proven throughout history, throughout recent economic history, but really throughout all of human history, that people are not to be trusted. It's, when given the power to abuse, when given the ability to abuse power, people will. So I think we learned that in 2008. We're learning it over and over again with bubbles, with different things that are happening. So if we can move our banking system from a system that is largely dependent on a small set of people in glass towers to make decisions to enrich themselves, I think we need to run away from that as fast as possible. But the tools for doing that are being invented currently, and they're hard to use. Frankly, this stuff is not easy. Being your own bank is not easy. There's a bunch of different tools. I don't really know of a good way to describe a trustless future, but really it's using incentive systems, paired with cryptography to make something that is robust, something that's durable, something that's even anti-fragile in terms of, say, something like Bitcoin.
So zero trust is when you're not reliant on when human failure can't ultimately make the system vulnerable, be a point of failure. Is that, if we're sort of a working definition, is that right?
I wouldn't say failure. I would say that human maliciousness will actually make a system stronger. So in the case of Bitcoin, the amount of money that it would take to attack the network is more than it would take to make an equal amount of money by doing the right thing or by mining. There's a way to build incentive systems and to remove humans from the equation, so that when people are acting their worst, the system continues to get stronger. And there are very, very few systems like this in the world. Nassim Taleb wrote the book Anti-Fragile about systems just like this. It's an excellent, excellent read if you guys are into his stuff. But really, it's extremely hard to do. And if we can continue to build more systems like that, we can trust on them, because then we don't have to trust that people are doing the right thing. We can just trust that people are doing something. And as long as one of us is honest, the rest of it works. Okay.
Demo, is that something that, how do you think about sort of moving from trust to trustless systems from the perspective of security?
I hear what Zach is saying, and I think that's, how we got our start, and that's how we're building our technology to satisfy those people that want to control 100% of their own digital assets and control their movement and their own currency, and their keys. But we think that we work within an existing infrastructure and a regulated environment that we need to be conscious of and aware of. And I know that they haven't come out to rule on certain things, but we need to be able to be, folks like Zach and ourselves at Ledger and in the entire industry need to be educating the government agencies and the folks that are involved in making policy to understand the level of technology, understand the level of sophistication, understand the level of security, understand what the underlying technology can do, and how can we better the existing system by moving towards that continuum or providing a blend of both, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Speaking of regulatory concerns and issues, at what point, and maybe Zach chime in as well, is it the case that you're managing digital assets above X value that you're required to be with a qualified custodian, that you can no longer self-manage and self-custody? Zach, is that sort of the case? Is there some break point at which you can no longer self-manage your own security?
Yeah, I believe, I don't actually think there is. I think there are some laws when it comes to securities, and I believe that number is 150 million. But so far, we know that most of these cryptocurrencies aren't securities. I think that this is something that's extremely frustrating, especially, for me and for a lot of different funds. More of the Wall Street people, and I don't really care about them, but the regulatory clarity here is none at all. It's extremely opaque. So far, we've seen just a lot of regulatory, rulemaking through enforcement, taking down some outright scams, which is good stuff. No one should get scammed. No one should get robbed here. But I think that we're trying, or the lawmakers are trying to define crypto assets into a bucket that already exists, when in reality they're a completely new bucket. It trades 24/7 worldwide. It doesn't care about borders or language or anything else. It's kind of unstoppable. You'd have to shut down the internet to stop it. The regulatory clarity issue is an issue still. I don't think anyone has a good answer for this. I would love for the SEC or the CFTC or whoever's going to jump on top of this to really just give us any rules rather than just waiting. I wish there were more clarity in the U.S. Some other countries have better laws, but or have more defined laws. I don't know if they're better. So you're seeing a lot of companies move there. Frankly, that's just what's happening.
Yeah, we're working hard at Ledger across the globe to work with all the agencies and educating them, and on at least on doing our part of the technology and the industry, and kind of it's an educational effort, and I think that they're trying to revert back to what they currently have as guidelines and rules, and do they apply in this current new asset class and new industry that we're forging into. And I think we just need to continue to go down that education continuum and do that. I've read a few articles recently where, we hear the SEC may be coming out with some general guidelines or comments. We'll see and obviously digest that when it does come out. But to Zach's point, I think there's no rules as per se today, because again, the majority of the asset classes have not been classified as a security. But you are hearing a lot about securitized tokens and moving in that regard, and then following the security regulations in the country to issue those securitized tokens, which could lead down a path of being a security.
Think it has to.
Eventually, yeah, exactly. It has to.
Are you seeing customers and clients generally going towards more of a self-custody solution, wanting to do what Zach and Airfoil are doing, is control their own destiny, or is that sort of too complicated and too nervous for people? And are you seeing people generally picking more of a custodian solution where they can hand it off?
We're seeing both, right? Both. I think we're seeing both. We're seeing people, in essence, since no one has come out with anything, hedge their bets, in essence, to provide both. I think a lot of folks are in Zach's camp from the standpoint, I want to control 100% of my keys, and others are used to using a custodian and wanting a custodial service to help them manage that process. They may not manage 100% of that process, but they are a part of that process. And I think I know that a lot of the traditional banks and trust companies and custody providers in the landscape today are getting requests from their clients to say, hey, when are you going to offer something into the marketplace where I can help, you can help me manage my digital assets. Sure. And others are more in the Zach's camp, to where I've got it, I'll take care of it. I'll use a technology platform that's out there in the marketplace today that's called Ledger Vault, and I'll manage 100% of my keys and design the risk tolerance.
Thank God I can do that. I don't have to rely on any third party.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are the big cybersecurity players entering this market, whether it be Microsoft, Checkpoints, whomever? Are you and maybe Zach, that's sort of as a way to sort of round off, are you seeing the bigger traditional security players starting to, I mean, it's a huge opportunity, obviously, from a business perspective. Zach, what are you seeing there?
I haven't seen much. I think they're usually waiting. I think you're seeing more of the consultancies that are coming in and building technology for different players. IBM is doing some cool stuff. They're not releasing it to the public. Most of what they do is say private blockchains. But all of these problems still persist there too. They're just a little bit easier because everything is internal. I think it's really, really hard to say for someone like Apple or Microsoft to go down this road, because this road is mostly open source, and their systems are not. What I think we will see more and more of, though, is the proliferation of encryption being used in our day-to-day devices. Yeah. Things like knowing that iMessage is encrypted, using Signal Messenger, using an open source operating system, something like Linux, using Ubuntu. I think we're seeing a lot more of a change there from an open source perspective than we are from the legacy tech companies. I welcome this change too. I think it's an awesome step in the right direction, and these open source technologies have gotten a lot easier to use with this recent influx in interest and frankly influx in money from the crypto world.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of chatter and interest around the security theater of this ecosystem. And again, this ecosystem is very broad, wide, and deep. And so there's a lot of players or wanting to be players that are trying to cover one facet of it. Where we're at is really providing the technology to secure the endpoints and providing Zach 100% control of what he would like to do for himself and his customers and for others. And it's really, again, providing that technology and the flexibility and the control for people to manage their assets. So whether it's a secure element with our open source operating system, most of our operating system is open source, but there's some elements of it that are not, just obviously from a security measure perspective, and also how we're working with hardware security modules and certifying that it's Zach that wants to do that transaction and certifying that it's him on the other end, and then adding others into that approval process to say yes, that are at Zach's firm that are part of that approval process to say yes, I'm approving that transaction. So again, it's providing the technology and securing the endpoints and providing a level of comfort.
Sure. I mean, you've got to be happy with where Ledger's positioned as this market grows for digital asset security.
We are. It's a right place, right time. Yep. Great company, great brand, great value prop. We're trying to really be one of the key platforms that will make this asset class mainstream, and that's what we're striving to do.
Yeah. Listen, this has been great, guys. I think that's a great place to end. It'll be really interesting to see how this industry evolves as other players come in. Obviously, as more institutional money flows in, and the pressure on securing these assets increases. This is a great roadmap. Maybe we can, Zach, when you're in New York in person, we can update this podcast and this conversation. But this has been fantastic. Thanks for joining by phone, and thanks for your input. And Demo, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
This has been great. Thanks, guys.
Always great to talk, and looking forward to the next time.
Sounds great.
Right.
Thanks, Zach.
Take care. Thank you.
All right.
That's a wrap on this episode of The Medium Rules with Alan Baldachin. For more information, go to our website at www.hballp.com. And you can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget to rate us on Apple Podcasts.